Welcome back everybody, and what I'm going to be talking about today is my mountain leader course kit loadout. So then, I recently done my mountain leader course. I've done a previous video on the top 5 tips on how to get through that course. As a result of that video, I've had a few requests asking me to show what kit I used on the course. So basically what I'm going to do is talk through the rucksack and the chest pack that I used on the course. I'm not going to talk through the clothing on this one. If people want me to do that, I can do that as well, okay? This is the rucksack I used on the course. It's an Osprey Kestrel 58. Now, I normally go for something that's slightly smaller than this when I'm out hiking on my own or with other people. But what I did is I wanted to make sure I had lots of space for team kit. So when you're carrying ropes, when you're carrying a bothy, med kit, spare clothing, things like that for the students, I just wanted to make sure I had a little bit of extra space, and this worked well for me. Again, that sort of thing's your own personal preference. One of the guys on the course was carrying a 70-litre rucksack. It was massive. I don't know what he was carrying, but it's up to you what you carry. Good thing about this though is there's lots of external pockets for all your kit that you want to get to, that's easy to hand, that's you want to grab quickly, and I'll talk through that as I'm going through the kit. So first thing I carried other than the rucksack was my chest pack. I've already done a review on this, so I'm not going to talk in detail about the chest pack other than the fact that I think it worked really well. And the main reason why I carried this really was for access to my map. Okay, so your 1 in 25,000 map, you're going to be carrying that, and it's going to be one of the main emphases on the course is to make sure that your navigation is really good. If you haven't got a good place to carry your map, you're already kind of on the back foot. A lot of walking trousers nowadays don't have a decent map pocket on them, and people were generally walking around holding their maps, slinging around their necks like some sort of Duke of Edinburgh flipping kid. If you've got something decent, I'm not saying this is the be all and end all, but if you've got something decent to carry your map in, it's going to help. Also in that, I've got my compass. Obviously, in conjunction with a map, that's going to be the two main bits of kit that you're going to use on the course. And then inside here, in one of the little pockets, I've got my admin line. So on this, I've got a whistle there, I've got my backup torch, I've got my lighter and a small knife, so they're all held together on there, so that's kind of on your body at all times. In an outside pocket here, what I've got is a small little card. Now what's on here is your pacings and distances. Okay, now you can do it mentally, but when you're cold and tired and you've been out for a few days, it's a bit of a godsend to just be able to pull this out and give yourself a bit of an instant answer to the questions that they're kind of demanding of you on the course. So that's it for the chest pack then, and the contents of that are 0.9 kilos for that alone. Okay, but obviously you don't really feel it, it's on the front of your body. You can see on the outside of the pack then, all the straps and stuff I've got taped up and tidied away there and on the front too. That's for a good reason. It's not just because I'm OCD. If these straps are flailing around in the wind, and it's going to be windy, isn't it, when you get up on the hills, they can catch someone else in the eye, or possibly even yourself if they whip right round, and they can hurt. Okay, so it's a good idea just to make sure everything's nice and tidied away. On the back of the pack here then, I've got my walking poles, and what I've done with those is I've put them through the loop, but I've twisted them just to make sure they're nice and tight and not loose and flapping around. So these are black diamond trekking poles. Not everyone uses these. Personally, I do get some good benefit out of these now since I got injured a few years ago. I do find them really useful for going down hills. So they're also good for other stuff. You can kind of check the area in front of you if you're moving through boggy ground. You can check the depths of streams, all sorts of good stuff. So if you use these sort of things, or if you're considering them, it's worth having a look at those. Okay, on the outside of the pack then, in external pockets and stuff, first thing I've got on this side is my Life Venture thermal mug. I swear by these. I think these are a great bit of kit. You can make a brew in the morning, possibly if you've only just finished half of it, chuck it in your pack, and then later on you've got a brew that's good to go for a couple of hours. I don't bother with flasks myself, but a thermal mug like this I think is a great bit of kit. So that's on the outside there. On the other side then, what I carried was a small flexible water bottle here. So this is made by Hydro Pack, and that's got 1 litre of water in. The reason why I carried this in addition to an actual bladder, you can see the tube for there then, is these are quite handy for when you're in your tent at night. I find them a lot more handy to drink out of, to just take a swig out of, rather than trying to suck out of a tube. Your rucksack might be, you know, outside in your sort of outside area of your tent as well. So it's just handy for that, and also you can replenish your hydration bladder. So I had a litre there, and the hydration bladder I've got inside here was another 1.5 litres. Now, some might think that's a little bit excessive. Personally, I do drink quite a lot of water when I'm walking up and down hills, especially if it's quite warm. So I found that a perfect balance, 2.5 litres. On the first day, you do cover a lot of distance on the first day, and I found that my 1.5 litres did run out, and that was a good sort of 5k's before the end. So I was chuffed to bits that I had that extra litre to replen my Camelback. So on the pockets on the waistband then, these I found really, really useful because it makes sure, or it helps you have stuff to hand. On the right hand pocket then, the first thing I've got is my pacer, and I've mentioned this in a previous video. This is what you're going to be using quite a bit for measuring your distance, okay? Next thing I've got is my snacks for the day. So basically, this is my lunch. This is all I took for lunchtime food, basically. So I had 4 snap bars and then a packet of these dextrose energy tablets, and that's all I ate during the day. But having them handy there so you can eat on the move is quite good. At the bottom of that then, I've got a couple of other items. One is some insect repellent. I didn't actually need that on the course, but it's one of those things that if you don't take, you're going to need. And the other thing I've got is some sun protection cream, so factor 50 that one is. So just for, you know, when you're hiking, sometimes you can be out in the sun, and it was actually quite hot on the back of my neck, and I did use that. So on the left hand side then, what I've got is a pair of gloves. So this is my primary sort of gloves. These are a pair of Arc'teryx ones. They're quite sort of lightweight and quite well used now, just for sort of wind protection when you're out in the cold up on the high parts of the mountains and stuff. And then a neck gaiter. So these are great. Spent my entire army career being told that these things were for hats. We used to get issued one of these, but actually they're really, really good. The lightweight ones like this are really good for keeping the wind chill out, because of that heat escaping out of your neck can cool you down really quickly. You can pull that over your mouth and ears as well when it's really proper cold. So they're handy to keep handy, basically. Right then, so going into the top lid of the rucksack then, there's like a small pouch on the top. All that I carry in there is my head torch. So reason is you know you've got that in an emergency, in the dark or whatever, you know exactly where it is. There's nothing else kind of getting in the way there. In the main top flap of the lid here then, what I've got is a small waterproof bag. This is one made by Xbed, and I've got all my bits and pieces in here that need to stay waterproof. First thing is some toilet paper, and that's the stuff that biodegradable. That's the word I was looking for. So you can actually bury it if need be. I've got 6 AAA batteries. They're the type that the head torch works off. I've got a spare lighter, so obviously needs to be kept waterproof. I've even got a small pack of the windproof matches that you get in the ration packs, so another alternate means of starting fire. And even I've got a ferro rod and a striker as well. So if all those run out, or if they fail or get wet or whatever, you've definitely got a means of starting your cooker up. And that's all held together in that waterproof bag. Then I've got my Sawyer mini filter. I've done a review on this, and you will be drinking from streams and stuff, okay? So you need to have some sort of means of purifying your water, and this was mine. So nice bit of kit there. Also with the water purification, I've got a small tub with the Army issue water purification tablets there. So you can double tap it if you think the source is slightly dodgy. Okay, here what I've got is a backup compass, okay? So it's exactly the same as my primary compass, a normal silver compass in degrees. And what I've done is I've kind of wrapped it up with this orange bandana just to give it a bit of protection, okay, in the top of your rucksack. Because they can break, they're only made out of plastic. And if your Bergen was kind of bounced around in the back of a vehicle or something, you want to make sure it's protected. Okay, next thing, Titanium Sport speaks for itself. You're definitely one of those to eat your rations with. And as silly as it might sound, you know, it's the sort of thing you might forget if you don't actually do a lot of this sort of thing. So I've got a small repair kit there, and within this I've got some cord, I've got some black tape, I've got some patch material for my mattress, I've got some super glue, I've got some quite strong thread there, Kevlar thread, with a couple of large bore needles. So that's just to repair any kit, you know, that might break or whatever. I haven't got any zip ties in here. I've never actually found the need for zip ties to repair anything for my entire time of being out on the hills. And they would have been kind of added a bit of bulk to that, would have needed a bigger pack. So I didn't bother with those. I know some people might say to take those. And that is it, apart from, oh sorry, last thing, mosquito head net. I always carry this no matter where I go, because if you've ever been on the wrong side of midges in places like Scotland and that, you'll know that it's an absolute morale destroyer. I didn't need this on the course because the area we was in didn't have many midges, but I always carry this anyway. It weighs virtually nothing and it's tiny. So that's in the top flap there. So in the side pouch of the rucksack then, I've got this collapsible plastic bottle, and that's my pee bottle. Now that might sound a bit over the top, but when you're in your tent at night, if it's peeing down outside and it's cold, last thing you want to do is get outside of your tent and go for a pee, isn't it? So that's a bit of a lifesaver for guys. I don't know what females do. I don't know if that work with a shiwi or whatever, or whether you just have to take the pain. I don't know. Okay, and the other thing I've got is this small trowel. So this is made by thetentlab.com, as it says on there. Just a really lightweight trowel, good for digging your hole if you need to go to the toilet. So they're my sort of toiletry things in the side pouch there. Right, so on this external mesh pouch, what I've got is a multi-mat, which is great for sitting on. You can't sit on your rucksack if you've got a hydration bladder in there, because it could potentially burst the hydration bladder. But this is great for, you know, if it's cold and wet, saving your backside a bit for sitting on the floor. One thing you need to be aware of though is that because these are so light, they can get caught by the wind and blown away really easily. So as soon as you put it down, put your hand on it and sit on it. And same for when you pick it back up again. Okay, but yeah, they're quite handy. Going into the main part of the pack then. So this is a top loading pack. Underneath the top flap here then, it's got a mesh pouch, and all I've got in there is my kind of wash kit. Very small and compact, as you can see. Main part of this really is just to look after my teeth. So I've got a toothbrush, a small tube of toothpaste, and I've got some dental floss. This is a small pat towel. It's actually a cut down section of pat towel. It's very small, and I'll just use that really for caring for my feet, so drying my feet off after I've powdered them and stuff. You can see it's in a little plastic bag as well, because you know, potentially this could get slightly wet, and that's the only thing that really matters about getting wet in this. I've also got some wet wipes in the bottom there. Didn't really use them too much, but they're always handy for just clean yourself up a little bit. So that's my kind of wash kit there. And then going into the main pack itself, so you've got this compression strap here. Straight underneath that compression strap is my first aid kit. So I carried, for my little team of 4, I carried this Life Systems mountain first aid kit. And you see it's fairly decent size, so for a group I think it's a realistic size to go out for a few days on the hills. I've upped this up, you know, I've added my own bits and pieces in this, like I think you should do, by adding some better painkillers, some diarrhea medication, and a blister kit as well, and a few other bits and pieces. I'm not going to go into massive detail, but I do think if you buy a pre-made medical kit, you need to firstly get in there to know exactly what's in there and where it's packed, and it's probably a good idea, I think, to add your own bits and pieces. Now, in the top of the Bergen here then, what I've got is 3 dry bags, okay? Now, I know because I pack it in a certain way where I can get to my kit and the reasons why it's there, okay? So in the centre, what I've got here, this is my food. Now, this is really only my breakfast and main meals for the evenings. All the snacks and stuff are in there as well, but for the day that I'm walking, the snacks will be in one of the side pockets of the rucksack. The reason why that's there is that's a fairly hefty weight on its own, just that little pouch. So it's in the centre of my back at the top. So that's about 2 kilos on its own, just that. And in this then, what I've got is all my sort of snacks and bits and pieces. So I've got 5 snack bars per day in there, plus I've got 3-in-1 coffee, and I've got 2 of those per day, so 1 for breakfast, 1 for evening meal. You're probably not going to get a chance to make one during the day. We certainly didn't anyway. So that's in a plastic bag within here, just to keep it organised. Then I've got all my sort of main meals, a mixture of dried and army rations. So the army rations, like the ball in the bag type ones, they're good because they're ready to eat. You could potentially eat them cold if you needed to, and the other thing is you don't get any water other than some sort of, you could use dirty water even if you needed to boil them in, whereas these ones, you need your actual water to constitute them, but they're slightly lighter. So that's why I had a bit of a mixture of different types of food. So this dry bag on the left then, on my left, is my hats and gloves, and I've basically got a warm pair of gloves in there, a woolly hat, and then I've got spares for the group. So you're acting as the leader on the course, and you need to have spares for your students or potential, people acting as students on the course that you're taking. On this side, what I've got is my waterproofs, and the reason why they're there on the top is obviously you need to make sure they're handy. In the UK, it's something that you're always going to have handy. So I've got a Rab waterproof jacket. This was a perfect bit of kit. It worked really, really well. Got some really bad weather on the course, and it worked fine. I'll put the actual model name and description in the link. I can't remember what it is off the top of my head. And then waterproof trousers. So these are mountain equipment waterproof trousers, nice and lightweight, but again, do the job really well. I haven't been a big fan of waterproof trousers throughout my time, especially in the military, because they're kind of looked down on as being a bit untactical and noisy and stuff, but you do need them when you go on the course. In particular, our course director basically got a major sad on if you didn't put your waterproof trousers on when he was putting his on, and he was basically saying, that's your indication to people that you're leading to get dressed for the weather and stuff, which is fair enough. So again, near the top, another safety item is the Bivvy. So I've got a Terra Nova Bivvy there, and this is quite a big one, okay? I could have saved a bit of space and weight if I'd taken a different one. I hadn't really used much of these sort of things before the course, to be honest, and I just got what I found. I got this off eBay, but you can get much more compact. You can get ones like half the size of these. So what I'd suggest is if you are going to go on one of these courses, maybe get a nice and compact one, smallest one you can find. Next I've got my cooker, so I've got an MSR pocket rocket in there with a full size gas canister, and I made sure I got a brand new one ready for the course so that I didn't have any issues with it running out. Sometimes when you go to get one out your cupboard where you've been camping and stuff, it could be half empty, so make sure you've got a full one so you don't have any issues. And I've got a small Soto cooking pot there as well. Next thing out then, these are my clothes here. So this is a separate dry bag. This is from TRC Outdoors, and I'll show you what I've got inside here. So first thing I've got is these Sokwa little booty things. They're made of neoprene, and they look tiny. They look like I've got tiny feet, but they actually expand out. And these are great for in the evenings, once you've got to your bivvy site and you're set up and you're doing your admin and stuff. If you do need to go outside your tent, to go for a pee or whatever, it's a bit of a godsend having something else to put on your feet other than your boots that could be sopping wet. And ours were on our course because they took us through lots of wet areas. The other thing you can use these for are river crossings. If you end up having to do one of those, we didn't on our course, but instead of getting your feet and your boots sopping wet, you've got an alternate means of protecting your feet if you were doing a river crossing. So that's why I've got those. To do with feet then, I've got some foot powder in a plastic bag. I'd say always put it inside a separate plastic bag because they do kind of leak sometimes, the old foot powder, but it's really essential that you look after your feet. As I said, we went through a lot of wet areas, and it's a good idea, essential to look after your feet once you get to your bivvy site. Okay, I carried a thermal jacket, so this is an Arc'teryx thermal jacket. I can't remember what the model is, I've had this for years, but nice and lightweight, but kind of good weight to warmth ratio. Then I've got 2 pairs of socks. So you're out for 3 days on the X bed, so 1 pair per each morning. And I also carried a pair of these waterproof socks. Okay, so these were a godsend. Okay, so on the second day, my boots were still sopping wet from the first day because we went through loads and loads of wet ground on the first day. And what I found is I put these on the second day. They kept my feet dry for most of the day. And then what I did on the second night is I actually turned them inside out, like so, put them against my body, inside my clothing, and they actually dried out in the night, so they were ready for the third day as well. So, each to their own, but I found those to be really, really useful, those to look after my feet so they weren't sopping wet all the time. Okay, this is a little travel pillow. It's a bit of a comfort item, but personally, you're going to get a better night's sleep if you have some sort of little pillow. And that's one by Sea to Summit. It's a nice little compact pillow there. Again, weighs virtually nothing, that. Last things then, I've got a spare t-shirt. So that's, if you're wet or sweaty or whatever, you've got a spare t-shirt. And then I actually took a very lightweight rab fleece as well. So when you're in your bed at night, it's a nice little comfort item to put on rather than a big puffer jacket. It's just another layer of warmth if you need it too. So that's all the clothing there. Okay, sleeping bag. So you can see that's pretty compact, quite small. It's in its own separate dry bag, obviously, to keep it nice and dry. Again, you need to make sure everything's 100% waterproofed. And this is a Robins Serac 300. It's a down sleeping bag, so nice and light. And I was actually nice and toasty in this inside my tent, which I'll talk about in a minute. Okay, going into the bottom part of the rucksack then. So this section at the bottom here, 2 items in here. Firstly, my tent. So I've got a Nordisk tent. So it's, as it says there, it's a Telemark 2. Now these are expensive. Okay, I think it's like 500 quid or something for this. Very expensive. However, as it says there somewhere, 950 grams, super duper lightweight, and very compact packed space as well. You could probably compact this down a bit more if you took it out of the bag and just squished it down. So really compact. I wouldn't say it's probably the best option, but it was good for for the size and weight. I did find it flapped around a bit with the wind, and the inner kind of sagged down a little bit inside the tent, which I was really surprised at for a tent of this expense. But it worked really well on the course, and I stayed dry in there, and it was actually quite toasty in there as well. So there's probably better options out there. Anyone with any other ideas, put your comments in the section below. Okay, last thing then is my sleeping mat. So I used a Thermaless Pro Light. Great bit of kit. I found it slightly narrow, maybe it's because I'm slightly wide, I don't know, but good bit of kit. And I prefer these so-called self-inflating mats to the ones that are just the inflatable ones, because they, even if they get a puncture, they still give you a little bit of protection from the ground. They've got like a little bit of padding in them. Not that happened to this, it's just that's what I personally prefer. Everyone's got their own options, haven't they, their own preferences, but yeah, that worked well for me. And that's it, that's all the kit there. Okay, so that's the total weight of the pack, and that is 15.9 kilos. So one little extra thing then, I found out before we set off our axe bed that we were going to be using the same minibus to get picked up than we were getting dropped off. So what I did is I stuck in this little pack, basically a carry bag with a spare t-shirt, pair of shorts and some sandals. Okay, now that might sound a bit daft when you're sat there in your armchair watching this, but I tell you what, that was an absolute godsend. Getting in a minibus, once you've been walking all day for 3 days, everything's soaking wet, including your boots, your feet, to have some dry clothes to get changed into and to air your feet was mega. So that was my kit loadout for my mountain leader course. Now, no doubt people have their opinions, their comments about this kit. Even though that was, a fairly hefty weight, all up weight, don't forget that's including 2.5 litres of water, 3 days worth of food, a tent, a sleeping bag, and all the rest of the kit I'm carrying there, okay? So if anyone's got any suggestions, comments on alternate bits and kit that they've carried on their courses, or questions about the kit that I've used, how it fared, shoot them into the comment section below. And as always, stay prepared.